In a single, shattering moment, the celebrated chef, renowned for his soulful creations and unwavering passion, was fired for no reason at all. His legacy, built over decades of culinary mastery, seemed to vanish as swiftly as a flame in a gust of wind. Yet, beneath the weight of betrayal and injustice, a spark of resilience quietly kindled. For years, he had infused every dish with warmth and heart, becoming a pillar of inspiration in a community that revered tradition and hard work. His kitchens were more than places to cook, they were sanctuaries where stories were shared and dreams were nourished. The injustice of that day left a gaping wound, a mystery wrapped in silence, echoing the bitter taste of a betrayal no one could understand. As whispers of the incident began to circulate, so too did murmurs of an extraordinary comeback. In the quiet moments following his dismissal, a resolve grew stronger than any setback. Friends and loyal patrons recalled his unmatched talent and the gentle wisdom that seasoned every recipe. They wondered, could the same hands that had once stirred the pot of hope now rekindle a flame that even the harshest injustice could not extinguish? This is the story of a man who faced an unprovoked end, only to discover that the deepest darkness can reveal the brightest light. The stage is set for a comeback that is as unexpected as it is inspiring, a testament to the enduring power of passion, perseverance, and the unyielding human spirit. Before the tempest of betrayal swept through his life, the chef had built his career brick by brick, fueled by passion, perseverance, and a deep love for culinary artistry. In a modest neighborhood where every meal was a celebration of tradition and hard work, his journey began. As a young apprentice in a small, bustling kitchen, he learned that food was more than sustenance, it was a way to heal, to connect, and to honor generations past. From his earliest days, the chef was captivated by the art of flavor. The aromas of simmering broths and freshly baked bread in his grandmother's kitchen stirred memories of warmth and love. Those formative years, spent absorbing ancient recipes and heartfelt stories, laid the groundwork for a career that would eventually transform the culinary landscape. With each dish he prepared, he paid homage to the traditions that had sustained his family for decades. It was in those moments that he realized the power of food to transcend boundaries and bridge the gap between past and present. Over the years, his commitment to excellence propelled him into the limelight. He honed his craft through long hours and tireless experimentation, earning accolades and the unwavering respect of his peers. In a world that sometimes favored flash over substance, he remained steadfast in his belief that authenticity was the true hallmark of culinary brilliance. His kitchens became sanctuaries where both staff and patrons found solace, a place where every plate told a story and every ingredient was a note in a grand symphony of taste. As his reputation grew, so did the sense of responsibility that accompanied it. The chef was not merely a craftsman, he was a mentor and a guardian of a legacy steeped in tradition. He mentored young cooks with patience and care, imparting lessons learned from decades of experience. His influence extended beyond the walls of his restaurant, he was a pillar of his community, a symbol of resilience and dedication in a rapidly changing world. Every handshake, every shared meal, and every word of advice reinforced his belief in the power of perseverance. Yet, even in these early days of triumph, subtle undercurrents of unease began to emerge. Beneath the surface of public praise and culinary accolades, there were murmurs of discontent among a few influential figures. While the chef's journey was largely defined by passion and hard work, the seeds of jealousy and hidden agendas were being sown by those who envied his success. Whispers in the corridors hinted at decisions made behind closed doors, decisions that were poised to challenge the very foundation of his career. The chef's dedication to his craft never wavered, even as the first hints of injustice emerged. In the quiet hours after a long day in the kitchen, he would often reflect on the sacrifices made to reach his current standing. Memories of sleepless nights, rigorous training, and moments of doubt intermingled with the satisfaction of every small victory. He understood that the path to greatness was seldom smooth, and that true resilience was forged in the crucible of adversity. In one particularly poignant instance, as he prepared a signature dish that had once been the highlight of his menu, he paused to consider the profound journey that had brought him this far. The flavors he blended were a tapestry of his experiences, each spice a reminder of a hard-won lesson, each simmer a testament to the enduring spirit of his craft. Even as subtle hints of betrayal began to cast shadows over his professional life, his focus remained on the artistry that defined him. There was a quiet determination in every measured movement, a resolve that no external force could easily shatter. This period of his life was marked not by immediate calamity but by an undercurrent of tension, a slow-building storm that few could predict. The chef's steadfast commitment to quality and tradition was, in many ways, his shield against the encroaching darkness. His work, deeply rooted in the values of integrity and authenticity, provided him with a foundation that was as solid as the mortar binding the bricks of his legacy. It was this foundation, carefully laid over years of dedication, that would ultimately serve as the beacon guiding him through the impending storm. As the chef continued to perfect his recipes and nurture his community, he remained blissfully unaware of the forces gathering against him. Yet, even in those calm moments, there was an unspoken acknowledgement among those who knew him best: the journey of life was unpredictable, and even the strongest foundations could be shaken by unforeseen events. Still, he pressed on, confident that the values instilled in him through years of hard work would prove unbreakable in the face of any adversity. Thus, in the warmth of a well-lived past and the glow of culinary mastery, the stage was quietly set for the dramatic upheaval that would soon redefine his legacy. In the days leading up to the fateful dismissal, the air around the chef's workplace shifted subtly. What had once been a harmonious hub of creativity and camaraderie was now laced with whispers and furtive glances. Colleagues exchanged knowing looks in hushed tones, and the kitchen, once a stage for his culinary brilliance, began to feel like a theater of secrets. Even the rhythmic chopping of vegetables and sizzling of pans carried an undercurrent of tension that no one could quite name. The first signs of something amiss came not through loud accusations but through a series of small, almost imperceptible events. A mysterious email arrived in the chef's inbox late one evening, its sender unknown and its tone strangely formal. The message hinted at a reorganization within the management and referenced changes that were imminent. While such emails were not entirely uncommon in large organizations, the timing and cryptic language of this one struck a chord deep within him, a premonition of a storm brewing on the horizon. As days turned into restless nights, the chef began noticing patterns he could no longer ignore. Meetings among senior staff grew more secretive, held in secluded corners away from the busy clatter of the main dining area. In these dimly lit spaces, conversations were laced with tension and words like realignment and new direction were repeated as if they were incantations meant to erase the past. Although no one spoke directly of him, every whispered word and every sidelong glance seemed to hint that he was at the center of a shifting power dynamic. One afternoon, while preparing for a special event that showcased his signature dishes, he overheard fragments of conversation that sent a chill down his spine. Two managers, voices low and urgent, discussed streamlining operations and removing inefficiencies in a way that felt far too calculated. There was no mention of financial reasons or performance issues, only an unsettling suggestion that something had to be done to silence a disruptive element in the team. The chef, who had long been regarded as the heart and soul of the establishment, suddenly found himself wondering if his passion and integrity were being used against him. In the quiet moments after these overheard conversations, as he scrubbed down the counters and arranged fresh produce with meticulous care, a gnawing doubt took root. How could someone who had given so much to the craft be reduced to a mere inconvenience? The chef began retracing the past few months, searching his memory for hints of betrayal. His recollections brought forth images of uneasy meetings with some of the administrative staff, where decisions were made with little transparency. There were unexplained absences of key documents and contradictory statements that painted a picture of a carefully orchestrated cover-up. The true shock came when a trusted sous chef discreetly confided in him. In a hushed tone laden with regret and worry, the younger colleague mentioned that he had seen secret exchanges of emails between members of the management team. These emails, though heavily redacted, suggested that the decision to dismiss him was less about his performance and more about removing a figure who could challenge the new direction being imposed on the establishment. It was as if his very dedication and the legacy he had built were seen as obstacles to an agenda that few understood but many silently endorsed. With every new piece of the puzzle, the chef's world began to crumble. The very institution that had once celebrated his culinary genius was now revealed to be a labyrinth of hidden motives and veiled hostility. The feeling of betrayal was overwhelming, but it was matched by a growing determination to uncover the truth. In quiet moments, as he pored over the scraps of evidence left behind, a misplaced document here, a suspicious phone call there, he pieced together a narrative of calculated exclusion. His firing, which had initially felt like an abrupt, unprovoked act, was now revealing itself as part of a broader, more sinister plan to reshape an institution at the cost of its soul. The unfolding mystery brought with it a sense of isolation. Friends and colleagues who had once shared laughter over simmering pots now seemed distant, their eyes clouded with a mixture of fear and resignation. It was as if the act of silencing him was meant to serve as a warning, a reminder that even the most cherished traditions could be swept away by the relentless tide of ambition. Yet, even as the weight of betrayal pressed upon him, the chef's spirit remained unyielding. Each new revelation, though painful, also ignited a spark of resolve to fight back against the injustice that had so abruptly upended his life. In the stillness of the early morning, after a long, sleepless night of reflection, he stood alone before the empty dining hall. The silence of the abandoned room was a stark reminder of what had been lost and what was at stake. With every passing moment, the threads of deceit were coming together to form a tapestry of betrayal that he could no longer ignore. The chef knew that the path ahead was fraught with uncertainty and danger, but he also understood that the truth, no matter how deeply hidden, would eventually find its way into the light. Thus, amid the unraveling of a career built on passion and integrity, the chef braced himself for the confrontation that was inevitable. The betrayal that had once been cloaked in whispers was now demanding to be faced head-on, and with that realization came the unwavering resolve to reclaim not just his honor, but the very essence of what made his work a beacon of hope for so many. The fallout of the firing plunged the chef into a chasm of despair from which it seemed he might never emerge. In the stark aftermath, the vibrant pulse of his daily life, once fueled by the hum of a busy kitchen and the warm chatter of loyal patrons, fell silent. Every corner of his world now echoed with the emptiness of a legacy abruptly upended. The culinary sanctuary that had nurtured his spirit for decades was transformed into a mausoleum of memories, each one a painful reminder of a time when his art brought light and joy to those around him. In the first few days after the dismissal, the chef wandered through his once beloved restaurant as though it were a foreign place. The clatter of pans, the rich aromas of simmering sauces, and the murmur of shared laughter had all vanished, replaced by a heavy, oppressive quiet. The familiar kitchen, where every utensil and spice jar had a story, now seemed to mock him with their silent testimony to happier times. Each object, a well-worn recipe book, a stained apron, even the gleaming knives meticulously arranged on the counter, served as a relic of a past when he was celebrated, not cast aside without warning. At home, the isolation grew even more profound. The chef's apartment, once a refuge of creative energy, transformed into a solitary cell where the ghosts of his former life whispered doubts in the quiet hours. Night after night, he sat in a dimly lit room, the only sound the ticking of a clock that seemed to mock the passing time. The questions that had always been at the edge of his mind now roared with certainty. What went wrong? How did I lose everything I built? The taste of betrayal was bitter on his tongue, mingling with the regret of unanswered questions and the pain of an identity that was suddenly in tatters. Financial pressures soon compounded the emotional torment. The steady income that had enabled him to create masterpieces and support his family was abruptly snatched away, leaving behind a trail of unpaid bills and a growing fear of the future. Even as the world outside moved on with its indifferent rhythm, the chef felt trapped in a relentless loop of anxiety and despair. The security he once took for granted had evaporated, replaced by the uncertainty of tomorrow. This newfound vulnerability gnawed at him, each day blurring into the next as he struggled to reconcile the loss of his professional pride with the harsh reality of mounting obligations. The absence of camaraderie was perhaps the most brutal blow of all. Long gone were the days when laughter and lively debates about recipes and techniques filled his evenings. His colleagues, once like a second family in the kitchen, had become distant figures, their sympathetic glances tinged with an unspoken discomfort. Invitations to gatherings and friendly chats had dwindled to nothing, leaving him isolated in a vast expanse of silence and regret. In the midst of his solitude, the memories of shared triumphs and collective struggles only deepened the wound, reminding him that he was no longer part of a team, but an outcast in a world that had once embraced him. In his darkest moments, the chef found himself locked in a battle against the internal demons of self-doubt and sorrow. Every cherished dish he had ever prepared, the savory stews, the aromatic pastries, the spirited flavors that once danced on the palate, now haunted him with the question of what it all meant. His craft, which had always been a source of deep pride and joy, became a painful reminder of the passion he had lost in the maelstrom of betrayal. The very ingredients that had once symbolized creativity and hope were now tainted by the relentless echo of his failure. Each spice jar and herb bundle stood as a silent testament to a life that, in one cruel moment, had been unmade. There were nights when the chef roamed the quiet streets, searching for a fragment of the self he feared was lost forever. Wandering under the pale glow of streetlights, he recalled the first time he had stepped into a kitchen, eager, wide-eyed, and full of dreams. That youthful optimism now seemed like a distant memory, obscured by the weight of bitterness and loss. The world, which had once been a canvas for his culinary masterpieces, now felt like an indifferent expanse, indifferent to the heartache that had befallen him. In the solitude of his grief, every minute stretched into an eternity of introspection. The chef questioned not only the fairness of his fate but the very nature of his identity. How could someone who had brought so much beauty and warmth into the lives of others now feel so utterly forsaken? His inner dialogue, once a wellspring of creative inspiration, was now a harsh critic, relentlessly pointing out every flaw and failure. The vibrant passion that had once ignited his every endeavor had dimmed to a flicker, barely holding back the encroaching darkness. Yet, even as he sank deeper into the abyss, a fragile ember of his former self smoldered beneath layers of despair. It was a quiet, almost imperceptible reminder that within the depths of loss, the possibility of renewal still lay hidden. For now, though, the chef remained enveloped in the somber silence of his new reality. A poignant testament to the harsh price of betrayal and the profound struggle of reclaiming a shattered identity. At the brink of despair, when every corner of his world seemed cloaked in shadows, a quiet, unexpected encounter began to kindle a new flame of possibility. One crisp morning, as the chef wandered the quiet streets in search of solace, his heavy steps led him to a modest neighborhood cafe that he hadn't visited in years. The establishment, with its faded sign and inviting aroma of freshly brewed tea, held memories of a simpler time, a time when culinary dreams were shared over warm cups and gentle conversations. Inside, the atmosphere was intimate and unpretentious. The walls, adorned with black and white photographs of local life, whispered tales of resilience and community spirit. It was here that the chef unexpectedly reunited with an old friend, a former colleague who had once toiled by his side in the heat and clatter of a bustling kitchen. This friend, having faced his own share of disappointments and setbacks, now managed a small but vibrant bistro that celebrated local traditions and time-honored recipes. Without the need for grand gestures or formalities, the friend greeted the chef with a sincere smile and an invitation to sit and share a warm cup of tea. Over steaming mugs, the conversation unfolded like a slow, deliberate dance. The friend spoke of his struggles and small victories, recounting how life's trials had, in their own time, revealed unexpected opportunities. In the cadence of his words, there was a profound understanding of the delicate balance between defeat and redemption, a balance the chef knew all too well. As they talked, the friend mentioned a forthcoming local food festival, an event designed to celebrate the culinary heritage of the community. More than just a festival, it was a reunion of sorts, a chance for chefs, artisans, and lovers of tradition to come together and revive the art of authentic cooking. The friend was convinced that the chef's unique talent and deep-rooted passion could be the missing ingredient that would not only enrich the festival but also reawaken a long-dormant fire within him. Listening intently, the chef felt a stirring deep within, a sensation he had not experienced in months. The idea of re-engaging with a community that still cherished the art of cooking, and a chance to share his skills with an appreciative audience, began to dispel the darkness that had so long consumed him. Memories of youthful determination and the joy of crafting a perfect dish surged forth, mingling with the bittersweet lessons of his recent past. The friend's words, simple yet profound, painted a picture of hope and second chances that was impossible to ignore. In the days that followed, the chef found himself drawn to the vibrant pulse of life outside his kitchen's abandoned walls. He began frequenting local markets again, where the rich hues of fresh produce and the spirited banter of vendors reintroduced him to the sensory joys of his craft. Each visit was like a small pilgrimage back to his origins, a reminder that the world still held beauty and inspiration, even after betrayal. The bustling energy of the market and the friendly nods of long-time vendors reminded him of the community that had once embraced his culinary artistry. Encouraged by this revival of interest, the chef rented a small, humble kitchen space to experiment with his long-forgotten recipes. At first, his hands trembled as he measured spices and stirred simmering pots, a physical echo of the emotional uncertainty that had gripped him. Yet, with each carefully prepared dish, his confidence began to rebuild. The familiar rhythm of chopping, mixing, and tasting served as a soothing reminder that his passion had not been extinguished, it was simply lying dormant, waiting for the right moment to emerge once more. Friends and former colleagues, though few, were among the first to taste the chef's rejuvenated creations. Their tentative smiles and heartfelt words of encouragement were like gentle affirmations of his enduring talent. In the simple act of sharing a meal, he rediscovered not only his creative spark but also the profound connection between food and community. Each dish was more than a recipe, it was a declaration of his resilience and a tangible step toward reclaiming the life he had nearly lost. The spark of hope, nurtured by the unexpected kindness of an old friend and the vibrant life of his local community, began to spread. It transformed his solitary struggle into a shared journey of rediscovery. The friend's invitation to participate in the food festival loomed on the horizon as a beacon of possibility, an opportunity to step back into the light, armed with the lessons of the past and a renewed determination for the future. Thus, amid lingering echoes of betrayal and moments of lingering doubt, the chef embraced this new chance with cautious optimism. The spark had ignited something deeper within him, a belief that even in the darkest of times, the smallest ember of hope could grow into a blazing testament to resilience, creativity, and the indomitable spirit of a true artisan. In the quiet hours after the spark of hope had reawakened his ambition, the chef retreated into a space that was both physical and profoundly internal, a small rented kitchen that doubled as a sanctuary for his soul. Here, away from the glaring eyes of a judgmental world, he embarked on a journey inward, determined to reclaim not only his culinary prowess but also the very essence of his identity. Each morning, as soft light filtered through the window, the chef would stand before his counter, a blank canvas waiting for a renewed story. He began by revisiting the recipes that had defined his early days, a collection of time-worn cookbooks and handwritten notes that carried the legacy of his ancestors. With each measured pinch of spice and every careful stir of simmering sauces, he felt as though he were peeling back the layers of his past, rediscovering the passion that had once propelled him forward. These familiar rituals became a form of meditation, a quiet dialogue between his heart and his craft. But the journey inward was not solely a nostalgic retracing of old recipes, it was a deliberate confrontation with the ghosts of betrayal and the wounds that had festered in the wake of his dismissal. Late at night, when the hum of the city gave way to a contemplative silence, the chef would sit by a small desk, pen in hand, and write down his thoughts. In a worn journal, he recorded his doubts and his fears, the sting of injustice, and the flickers of hope that still dared to shine through the darkness. These written reflections became a mirror, allowing him to face his inner turmoil with unflinching honesty. He acknowledged the pain of betrayal and the lingering bitterness that threatened to smother his creative spirit. In doing so, he began to untangle the complex web of emotions that had held him captive. This inward journey was as much about rebuilding his inner resilience as it was about refining his craft. Each day presented a delicate balance between self-doubt and self-discovery. There were moments when the old insecurities surged back, when the silence of the empty kitchen felt like a void that echoed with accusations of failure. On such days, he would pause, close his eyes, and recall the voices of mentors and kindred spirits who had once encouraged him to persevere. Their memories, like warm embers, helped him remember that every setback was a precursor to growth. In those reflective moments, he began to see that the trials he had endured were not markers of defeat but stepping stones toward a deeper understanding of his own strength. As weeks turned into months, the chef's inward exploration started to bear fruit. His experimentation in the kitchen evolved into a form of self-expression, a language that transcended the bitterness of the past and spoke directly to his soul. With each new dish, he discovered uncharted territories within himself. Some evenings were spent perfecting a recipe that honored a forgotten tradition, while others were devoted to daring culinary fusions that broke the boundaries of convention. These creative experiments were accompanied by an internal dialogue that oscillated between caution and exuberance, a testament to his renewed willingness to embrace both risk and vulnerability. The transformation was gradual, marked by small victories and occasional setbacks. On days when a dish turned out perfectly balanced, a harmony of flavors that told a story of redemption, the chef felt an overwhelming sense of reconnection with his former self. These moments of triumph, however fleeting, served as beacons of affirmation, reminding him that the fire of his passion was far from extinguished. Conversely, when experiments went awry, the disappointment was tempered by a newfound understanding. Failure was an integral part of the creative process, a necessary contrast to the sweetness of success. Slowly, the kitchen became more than just a place to cook, it evolved into a reflective space where every aroma, every sizzle, and every taste was intertwined with lessons of resilience and self-forgiveness. The chef also began to explore techniques that honed his mindfulness, drawing inspiration from ancient culinary traditions that emphasized balance and respect for natural processes. He learned to treat each ingredient as a teacher and every meal as a lesson in humility and creativity. In moments of solitude, he found solace in the rhythmic chopping of vegetables and the gentle simmer of sauces, a cadence that mirrored the steady beat of his revitalized heart. Through this introspective journey, the chef came to realize that true transformation begins within. His inner evolution was not just about regaining the skills that had once defined him, it was about embracing every facet of his experience, both the light and the shadows, to forge a new path forward. The internal battles he fought, the doubts he overcame, and the small, steady steps he took each day all coalesced into a quiet revolution of the spirit. In reclaiming his narrative, he discovered that every setback carried the seed of a comeback, every whispered fear held the promise of a triumphant return. Thus, in the soft glow of his modest kitchen, surrounded by the tangible symbols of a life steeped in tradition and passion, the chef found a new beginning. His journey inward had transformed not only his approach to cooking but also his understanding of what it meant to truly live and create, with resilience, authenticity, and an unwavering commitment to oneself. In the golden haze of early autumn, the chef emerged from the quiet sanctum of his personal kitchen, his spirit ignited anew. Determined to reclaim the legacy that had once been so unjustly denied, he stepped back into the public eye with a resolve as vibrant as the colors of the season. The local food festival, a celebration of heritage and community, became the stage for his triumphant return, a setting where every whisper of the past could be transformed into a declaration of rebirth. At dawn, the chef prepared in a modest pop-up kitchen set up at the edge of the festival grounds. The early light filtered softly through the fluttering banners, casting a gentle glow on the utensils and fresh ingredients that lined his station. Each ingredient was meticulously chosen. Every herb and spice carried not only its own aroma but also the weight of years of tradition and passion. With each measured dash and stirring motion, he was not merely cooking, he was rewriting his narrative. As the festival stirred to life, the community gathered, drawn by curiosity and the promise of rediscovering a cherished culinary icon. Locals remembered him as the soul behind every dish that had comforted and celebrated life's milestones. Now, witnessing his careful preparations, they sensed that they were about to be part of something transformative, a rebirth of both a man and his craft. With a calm confidence, the chef began his public demonstration. He moved gracefully among his tools, each deliberate gesture a reminder of the mastery he had honed over decades. The aroma of simmering sauces and freshly baked bread mingled with the crisp autumn air, creating an intoxicating invitation. As he plated his first dish, a contemporary reinterpretation of a timeless classic, the crowd leaned in, eager to taste the flavors of redemption. The dish, vibrant and meticulously balanced, told a story of resilience and reinvention. Every bite carried hints of his storied past intertwined with innovative twists, a blend that resonated deeply with those who recognized the familiar warmth of tradition. The chef's re-entry into the culinary scene was met with both awe and skepticism. Lingering adversaries, those who had once orchestrated his downfall, watched from the shadows with thinly veiled apprehension. Yet, as each course was served and every flavor unlocked memories of simpler, more authentic times, the doubts began to fade. The public, including longtime patrons and curious newcomers, responded with heartfelt applause and encouraging murmurs. Their expressions, a mixture of relief and admiration, served as an affirmation of his enduring talent. In between the bustling activity of the festival, the chef took moments to engage quietly with those who approached him. An elderly gentleman, eyes filled with nostalgia, recounted tales of how the chef's dishes had once brought his family together during the most challenging times. A young mother, hesitant yet hopeful, expressed her longing to share the unique flavors of his creations with her children, a tradition she feared was fading from memory. In these exchanges, the chef rediscovered the human connection that had always been at the heart of his work. He realized that his comeback was not solely a personal victory, it was a revival of a communal spirit, a rekindling of the bond between food, family, and heritage. Yet, even amid the applause and renewed camaraderie, a subtle tension lingered. The shadow of his former workplace and the injustice he had endured hovered like an unspoken challenge. Some among the festival's attendees whispered about the management that had once silenced him, their voices a mix of curiosity and disapproval. But rather than allowing these murmurs to detract from his performance, the chef transformed them into fuel for his creativity. Each plate that emerged from his station was imbued with a quiet defiance, a reminder that his passion could not be extinguished by betrayal. As the day unfolded, the chef's presence began to dissolve old wounds. His comeback was more than a culinary event, it was a public reclamation of his identity and a statement that resilience could triumph over even the deepest injustices. With every satisfied smile and every word of praise, the community witnessed the unfolding of a remarkable transformation. The chef's journey from despair to determination, from solitude to shared celebration, resonated deeply with every person present. In the final moments of the festival, as twilight draped the gathering in a soft, reflective glow, the chef stood before his audience. His eyes shone with gratitude and quiet strength as he acknowledged the crowd that had come to witness his revival. The accolades were not just for the exquisite dishes but for the story they represented, a story of rebirth, of the power of perseverance, and of the unbreakable bond between a craftsman and his community. In that luminous moment, the chef's return was complete, a renaissance born from hardship, now celebrated as a beacon of hope and renewal. On a crisp, starlit evening that seemed to whisper of reckoning, the chef stood at the threshold of an old, once hallowed establishment, a grand culinary hall that had been the epicenter of his past triumphs and, now, the stage for his final confrontation. The air was thick with tension, every shadow and flickering light a silent witness to the storm about to break loose. The community had gathered for a special tribute event celebrating local culinary heritage, and this night, it would also serve as the setting for exposing the truth behind his dismissal. The event began with a measured calm. Guests mingled beneath softly glowing chandeliers, their voices a blend of admiration for tradition and curiosity about the man who had once been silenced. The chef had been invited to share the story of his journey, a narrative of passion, betrayal, and ultimately, redemption. Unbeknownst to many in attendance, this evening was to be more than a tribute, it was a reckoning. As the night unfolded, the chef took center stage in a modestly lit area near the front of the hall. His demeanor was composed yet resolute, a man who had weathered storms and emerged stronger, determined to reclaim not only his legacy but also the dignity that had been unjustly stripped from him. With every eye fixed upon him, he began to recount his journey. His voice, resonant and deliberate, carried the weight of every trial he had faced, every tear shed in the solitude of an empty kitchen, and every small victory that had fueled his comeback. The crowd listened in rapt silence as he detailed the events leading up to his firing. There was no bitterness in his tone, only a firm resolve as he described the mysterious emails, the clandestine meetings, and the hushed conversations that hinted at a broader conspiracy. Every word was a carefully chosen step toward unmasking the injustice, a truth that had been hidden behind polished facades and corporate rhetoric. In the hushed auditorium, murmurs began to ripple as old acquaintances exchanged glances, their expressions betraying the dawning realization that the story was far more complex than anyone had imagined. Then, in a moment that seemed to suspend time itself, the chef revealed a carefully preserved piece of evidence, a set of documents that corroborated the secretive plans of those in power. The evidence was simple yet damning, internal memos and redacted emails that spoke of strategic moves aimed not at improving the establishment, but at erasing a figure whose authenticity threatened an emerging agenda. The revelation rippled through the audience like a shockwave. Some faces paled in recognition, while others, those who had long harbored quiet doubts, nodded in solemn agreement. In the ensuing silence, the chef's adversaries, members of the former management now present in the crowd, shifted uncomfortably. Their eyes darted away, their once cool demeanors unraveling under the intense scrutiny of a community that had long valued integrity over convenience. What began as a carefully constructed homage to culinary art was rapidly transforming into a public forum for accountability. The chef's words, imbued with both artistry and the raw truth of his experience, left no room for denial. As the evidence was laid bare, tension escalated. A palpable mix of indignation and vindication filled the hall. In a dramatic twist, one of the once silent colleagues, an influential figure in the local culinary scene, rose to speak in defense of the chef. With measured conviction, this ally recounted personal experiences of witnessing the subtle corruption and quiet complicity that had marred the establishment. The shared narrative of betrayal resonated deeply with those present, and the room buzzed with the collective realization that this injustice had far-reaching implications beyond one man's misfortune. In that charged moment, the chef's gaze swept across the room, a silent challenge to those who had once thought themselves untouchable. His eyes, reflecting both sorrow and steely determination, invited the audience to stand with him, to honor the spirit of resilience that had defined his every creation. The atmosphere teetered on the edge of confrontation, yet it was tempered by an overwhelming sense of unity and moral clarity. The chef was not merely defending his own honor, he was laying bare a system that had too long hidden its flaws behind an alluring veneer of progress. As the night drew to a close, the climax of this confrontation left the audience transformed. The chef's journey from betrayal to this moment of public vindication was complete, a final, defiant act that shattered the old order and paved the way for a new era of accountability. In the dimming light of the hall, as hushed conversations swelled into determined whispers of change, the chef stood firm. His comeback was not just a return to the culinary world, but a rebirth forged in the crucible of truth and resilience. The climax of the evening had reasserted that, sometimes, the most potent ingredients in life are not found in a recipe, but in the courage to expose injustice and reclaim one's rightful place in the tapestry of tradition and honor. In the weeks following that fateful night of revelation, the chef's world began to shift in ways both subtle and profound. The public outcry against the injustice of his firing had set in motion a ripple effect that transformed not only the institution that had once wronged him, but also the very fabric of his community. As whispers of accountability replaced the murmurs of betrayal, the chef found himself at the center of a healing process, a transformation that reconciled past sorrows with future promise. In the quiet aftermath of the confrontation, the chef returned to a life that was, in many ways, a tapestry of old routines and new ambitions. The scandal that had once cast a long shadow over his reputation was now replaced by a renewed sense of purpose. Former colleagues who had once distanced themselves came forward with expressions of regret and admiration, and the local community embraced him with open arms. It was as if the injustice had not only unmasked hidden corruption but had also cleared the way for redemption and reinvention. With the painful memories of his dismissal slowly receding into the background, the chef began to rebuild his life from the ground up. No longer defined solely by the bitter wounds of betrayal, he now channeled every lesson into a new venture, a community-driven culinary institute dedicated to preserving time-honored recipes and mentoring young cooks. The institute was more than a restaurant or a school, it was a living memorial to resilience and the belief that passion, when nurtured, can overcome even the deepest scars. In its modest, warmly lit kitchens, students and enthusiasts gathered to learn not just about food, but about the enduring spirit that had driven the chef to rise again. Every day, as the chef stirred pots and crafted dishes that told stories of tradition and renewal, he recalled the long, arduous journey that had led him to this moment. His mind wandered back to the dark days of isolation, to the endless nights spent grappling with self-doubt, and to the sting of being cast aside without warning. Yet, in every recollection, there was also a spark, a reminder of the inner strength he had discovered when all seemed lost. That spark had grown into a steady flame, illuminating the path forward and proving that even the harshest adversities can be the soil in which new beginnings are sown. In community gatherings and quiet conversations with his students, the chef shared his story candidly. He spoke of the betrayal that had nearly broken him, the unexpected kindness that had rekindled his hope, and the inner journey that had reawakened his creative soul. His words, laced with both humility and fierce determination, resonated deeply with those who listened. For many, his narrative was not just about a personal comeback, it was a testament to the transformative power of perseverance, a reminder that every setback can hold the seed of a new, more vibrant chapter. The chef's new role as a mentor allowed him to pass on the most precious lessons of his journey. He taught that life, with all its unpredictable twists and challenges, is an ever-changing recipe that requires both the courage to experiment and the wisdom to honor one's roots. He reminded his students that the bitterness of betrayal could be transformed into a rich, complex flavor when mixed with hope and resilience. His story became a quiet anthem for those who had faced their own trials, a call to embrace vulnerability, to trust in the healing power of time, and to never let the darkness extinguish the light within. As the seasons changed and the institute flourished, the chef looked back on the turbulent months with a calm acceptance. The scars of injustice, though still faintly visible, had faded into symbols of survival and strength. In the gentle murmur of shared laughter in the kitchen and in the spark of creativity ignited in his students' eyes, he saw the truth of his journey, that the human spirit is capable of extraordinary transformation. Even when the world seems intent on breaking you down, there is always the potential for a resurgence, a chance to emerge not just unbroken, but reborn. In the final analysis, the chef's comeback was more than a professional victory, it was a celebration of life itself. His story bore a timeless lesson, that adversity, when met with determination and authenticity, can pave the way for reinvention and renewal. For those who had walked similar paths of hardship, his journey offered both comfort and inspiration, a vivid reminder that every end carries within it the promise of a new beginning, and that every setback is simply the prelude to an even greater comeback.